Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into how we make choices, the decisions that shape our day-to-day and, well, our future too.
Absolutely.
You sent in some fascinating material about getting better at decision making, and we're going to unpack the most practical ideas together. Think of this as a way to sharpen your own judgment, spot those hidden traps, and really figure out what matters.
It's quite something how much we run on autopilot, isn't it? We're
Yeah.
going to try and shed some light on those processes and give you some hopefully useful tools.
Great. Let's dive right in then.
Yeah.
The first big theme that jumped out from these notes is recognizing our hidden biases.
Ah, yes. Biases. Always tricky.
There's this great analogy used wearing red-tinted sunglasses. You see everything is red and you just assume that's how things are.
That's a perfect illustration. It shows how our view can be skewed without us having a clue.
And often these lenses are heuristics, right? These mental shortcuts our brain takes.
Exactly. They're usually efficient.
Yeah.
Help us make quick calls, but they can definitely lead us astray sometimes. They introduce errors.
Right. And confirmation bias is a huge one mentioned. That pull towards information that just confirms what we already think.
Oh, definitely. It's like searching for puzzle pieces that only fit the picture you've already decided on in your head.
Yeah, and you ignore the ones that don't fit, even if they'd show you something important.
Precisely. And it happens so easily. Say you get a feeling a colleague doesn't like you.
Right.
Confirmation bias makes you zoom in on any tiny, maybe neutral thing they do and see it as proof.
Yeah.
You just filter out anything friendly they might do.
So that initial gut feeling, that first impression, it might be way off.
It absolutely might be. Not the whole story, anyway. A really effective way to challenge this is to just ask yourself regularly, okay, what else could this mean?
Or am I really seeing this fairly?
Exactly. That pause, that simple question can open things up immensely.
It reminds me of that Tony Robbins line, the quality of your life is the quality of your questions.
That's a good one. Asking better questions, especially of ourselves, is key to getting past those biases.
Definitely. Okay, so moving on from our internal biases, what about the information we get from the outside? Specifically, data.
Ah, data. Yes. We're swimming in it now, charts, stats, percentages.
Everywhere.
But the notes make a great point. Data's like a compass. It's only useful if you actually know how to read it.
That's a really clear way to think about it. Just seeing a number isn't enough. You need the story behind it. Like that example, 80% of people love this product. Sounds amazing, right?
That's great.
But if it's based on like 10 people they asked, it's basically noise.
Exactly. And understanding data, call it data literacy, isn't about needing a PhD in statistics.
All right.
It's more about asking those critical questions. Who gathered this? How many people? What was their motive?
Nice, the context.
Absolutely. Without that critical eye, numbers can fool you just as easily as words can.
So the big takeaway is, don't just swallow the headline number. Dig a bit deeper.
Always. Look behind the curtain before you let that data shape your decisions.
Okay, so what about technology? Our phones, algorithms, they make so many decisions for us now. Food, movies, even relationships sometimes.
It's incredibly convenient, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's a potential downside raised in the notes, this risk of passively letting algorithms do our thinking.
Yeah, that dependence.
It can actually weaken our own independent thinking muscles over time. It's like relying on a calculator for basic arithmetic. You kind of forget how to do it in your head.
The GPS analogy used is spot on. It's great for directions, obviously.
Super useful.
But you wouldn't drive into a lake just because the GPS says, go straight, right? You still need your common sense to check the real world.
Exactly. Technology should support our judgment, not replace it. We need to keep our own critical thinking switched on.
And that Brian Tracy quote mentioned is quite pointed. You become what you think about most of the time. If we're constantly outsourcing our decisions, what does that make us? It's worth thinking about.
It really is.
Yeah.
A prompt to be more conscious about how and when we lean on tech for choices.
Okay, let's talk about actively training our critical thinking. The notes use the example of coffee. You read one article saying it's great for you, the next says it's terrible.
Classic example. Happens all the time with health news, right?
Totally. And critical thinking is basically the skill you need to navigate that kind of conflicting information.
That's it. It boils down to asking those key questions about any information source. Who wrote this? What are they trying to achieve? Is there solid evidence? Is there an obvious slant or bias?
Like putting together a puzzle, the notes say. You don't just force pieces, you look carefully at how they fit.
Nice analogy. It's about being methodical, not jumping to conclusions based on the first thing you see or the loudest voice.
So resist the urge to instantly believe or dismiss something. Seek out different viewpoints first.
Definitely. And it's important to remember, critical thinking isn't about being negative or suspicious all the time. It's more about being curious, being open, but also being rational and calm as you evaluate things.
Okay, so being rational and calm, that leads nicely into the idea of reflecting before reacting. The comparison to chess players thinking moves ahead is interesting.
It really draws that distinction, doesn't it, between a considered action and just, well, a knee-jerk reaction.
And the notes suggest most of us, most of the time, tend towards reacting out of habit, maybe fear, or just feeling rushed.
It's often the path of least resistance in the moment, but that pause, that moment of reflection, is where the learning happens.
Taking time to review what happened, why, what the outcome was.
That's how raw experience gets transformed into actual wisdom, isn't it? You spot patterns, you understand consequences better.
So reflection isn't some kind of optional luxury. It's actually fundamental to making better choices next time.
Couldn't agree more. And that tip is so practical. Just 5 minutes after a big decision, write down, what did I expect? What really happened? What's the lesson here?
It's like building your own little feedback loop. Simple, but sounds really effective.
Over time, it absolutely sharpens your judgment.
Now let's get into emotions. I liked the analogy of emotions being like the weather.
Ah, yes, the weather analogy. It's helpful.
They come and go. They aren't inherently bad.
Right, they're just happening, like rain or sun. Trying to totally control them is often futile. The problem comes when we make big decisions right in the middle of an emotional storm, so to speak.
Yeah, like firing off that angry reply to a comment online versus just taking a breath.
Exactly. That immediate emotional response is rarely the wisest one.
Yeah.
Creating that gap between feeling something intense and acting on it is key.
Let the storm pass a bit first.
Pretty much. Give yourself time for the emotional intensity to settle. Then you can decide more rationally.
And the name it to tame it idea, just acknowledging, okay, I'm feeling really anxious right now, that can help.
It really can. Just identifying the emotion seems to give you a little bit of distance from it, makes it less overwhelming. As Dr. Joe Dispenza puts it, you can't build a new future holding on to past emotions. Dealing with them is key.
Which flows perfectly into emotional intelligence, or EQ. This idea that understanding and managing emotions, yours and others, is vital for good decisions.
Absolutely. It's not just about being smart, it's about being aware. How are feelings mine, theirs, influencing the situation?
You often see it in high-stakes situations, right? The person who stays calm often makes the better call than maybe the smartest person who's losing their cool.
Definitely. EQ is crucial in relationships, at work, parenting, pretty much everywhere. It helps you read the room, understand the underlying dynamics.
That anecdote about the two friends arguing and one saying, let's cool off first, that's EQ in action.
Textbook example. Prioritizing a constructive outcome over winning the argument right now. Wise decisions often come from that calmer, more self-aware place.
And that question to ask, what would my future self thank me for doing right now? That really taps into EQ, doesn't it?
It does. It lifts you out of the immediate emotional reaction and connects you to your longer-term values and well-being.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly. Information overload. We've all been there, right? Staring at a wall of light bulbs in the hardware store.
Oh yeah. Analysis paralysis, it's real.
Too many choices. What does that actually do to our brains?
Well, the research suggests it can literally shut us down. We freeze, we get frustrated, or sometimes we just pick randomly to escape the overwhelm.
So, counterintuitively, having fewer options can actually lead to better or at least less stressful decisions.
Often, yes. Simplifying the choice set brings clarity.
So the takeaway is simplify to clarify, and the practical tip mentioned is the 3-option rule.
Right. When you're faced with way too many choices, actively narrow it down. Maybe eliminate the extremes, focus on your main criteria, and pick from the best 3 contenders.
It's like clearing away the dead leaves so you can actually see the path.
Good way to put it, decluttering your decision space.
Now, what about getting advice from others? The notes say it can be really valuable.
For sure, getting different perspectives, hearing other people's experiences, it can highlight blind spots or options you hadn't considered. Collaboration can definitely improve decisions.
But there's a warning, too, about getting swamped by too many opinions, especially conflicting ones.
Yes, that's the flip side. You can end up more confused than helped if you just collect opinions without filtering them. That story about the young woman starting a business, getting totally different advice from her dad, friends, boss.
Yeah, everyone pulling her in different directions.
And that question she finally asked herself was key. Which book brings me peace, even if it's hard work?
Shifting from pleasing others to aligning with herself.
Exactly. So advice is useful input, but the final call has to be yours, rooted in your own values and judgment.
And when getting advice, maybe ask yourself, does this person really get my situation? Are they projecting their own fears? What's my gut saying underneath it all?
Those are great filters. And that Denzel Washington quote is powerful too. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. Don't just pick the advice that sounds easiest.
That's a strong point. Okay, what about adaptability? The world changes constantly, so our decisions need to be flexible too.
Absolutely essential. Rigidity is risky. Think of sailing. You have a destination, but you have to constantly adjust your sails to the wind.
You can't just lock the rudder and hope for the best.
Exactly. Being able to adapt your plans and decisions as circumstances change is a sign of strength, not weakness.
So a good decision isn't necessarily set in stone forever. It can evolve.
It often needs to. And a practical way to build this in is to schedule reviews for big decisions. Every few months, ask, has anything significant changed? Does my current path still make sense? Do I need to tweak things?
Staying open, being willing to pivot if needed. Okay, then there's lifelong learning. The brain as a garden analogy is quite vivid.
I like that one too. Keep planting new seeds, learning, or the weeds, stagnation, take over.
And the idea that learning doesn't stop when you leave school is so important now, with things changing so fast.
Critical. You can't rely on what you knew 5 years ago, sometimes even 1 year ago. That story of Tom, the logistics manager, who resisted AI at first.
Yeah, but then he decided to learn about it.
And because he was willing to learn, he ended up thriving. It shows that wisdom comes from curiosity, not just getting older.
So the takeaway is, keep learning, stay curious, and the tip is simple. Try to learn one new thing every week. Read something, watch something, ask someone questions.
It accumulates. As Brian Tracy said, those who learn more, earn more, and live more. It pays off in every area.
Okay, now shifting focus slightly again, what about the small decisions, the everyday ones?
Yes, this is a really important point. We obsess over the big life choices, but the notes argue it's the compound effect of tiny daily choices that really shapes who we become.
Like, do I scroll social media or read a book for 10 minutes? Do I react angrily or pause, speak up or stay silent?
Exactly. Each one seems insignificant on its own, but they're like little seeds. Over time, they grow into our habits or character.
The example of Emma journaling gratitude versus Leo scrolling feeds, and the difference it makes long term.
It illustrates it perfectly. Consistent, small choices create vastly different outcomes down the line.
So mastering the small stuff is actually key for big transformations.
It really is. And the suggestion to track just one small daily choice for a month may be, did I pause before reacting today? And reflect on it. That could be really revealing.
Bringing awareness to those automatic little choices.
Exactly, making the unconscious conscious.
Which brings us back to reflection, framed here as a real superpower, not just a nice to have.
Absolutely, it's presented as crucial. Without it, you can end up years down the road wondering, how on earth did I get here?
Right. And the decision journal idea sounds really concrete. Writing down the choice, why you made it, how it turned out, what you do differently.
It's like building your own personal library of lessons learned. And the goal isn't perfection, it's just getting a little bit wiser each time. Progress.
That story of Maria using her journal to see a pattern in her relationship choices and then changing it, that shows the power.
It really does. Looking back deliberately helps you move forward more intelligently. Dedicating, say, 10 minutes a week to review seems manageable but impactful.
Small investment, big potential return.
Definitely.
Okay, nearly there. What about our environment? How does our physical space and social circle affect our decisions?
Big impact, according to the notes. Things like clutter, constant noise, digital distractions, they can push us towards more impulsive, less considered choices.
So creating a focused physical space can actually help you think better. Clear desk, maybe silence notifications for a bit.
It can make a real difference. Reduce the friction for clear thinking. And just as important is your social environment.
The people you hang out with.
Exactly. That old saying, hang around 4 wise people, you'll become the 5th. There's truth in that. Surrounding yourself with thoughtful, ethical people rubs off.
It influences your standards, your perspectives.
Absolutely. So the takeaway is to be conscious about shaping your environment, both physical and social, to support the kind of thinking you want to do. Maybe do a quick audit. What helps me focus? Who encourages my best thinking? And what drains me or distracts me?
Being intentional about those influences.
Yes. Create the conditions for good judgment.
And finally, the cornerstone principle, making decisions driven by your core values.
This really ties it all together. It's positioned as the most fundamental thing. The best choices ultimately aren't always the easy ones or the popular ones.
But the ones that align with who you truly are.
Exactly. The ones that reflect your deepest beliefs. Honesty, growth, kindness, whatever they are for you. Using those values as your guide.
When your values lead, clarity follows.
That's the idea. And asking those final filter questions before deciding, does this match my core values? And will this move me towards the life I genuinely want?
Powerful checks. And that final point is sobering. Success without alignment can feel hollow, lead to regret.
It's a crucial reminder. True fulfillment comes when our actions and achievements are rooted in what genuinely matters to us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we've covered a lot. Understanding our minds, managing emotions, learning continuously, the power of reflection, and grounding everything in our values.
Quite a journey through the decision-making landscape. And the key message is, you don't have to implement everything at once. Just picking one or two things to focus on can start making a real difference.
It's about starting somewhere, making progress. Okay, so here's a final thought for you, the listener. Think about one decision you're wrestling with right now, big or small. Which idea from today, maybe questioning a bias, simplifying choices, checking your values, could give you a fresh angle or help you move forward with more confidence? We really encourage you to reflect on how you can weave these insights into your own life.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gives you some useful tools for navigating your choices more wisely.